In 16th century Germany, a fiery rebellion blazed across the land, fueled by the fervor of two knights who dared to challenge the status quo. It was the Knights' Revolt of 1522 to 1523, a daring endeavor led by the gallant Franz von Sickingen and championed by the bold Ulrich von Hutten. Hutten, a knight and poet of the humanist persuasion, had long harbored disdain for the church's corruption. His quill dripped with ink as he penned biting satires against its abuses, finding solace in the rising tide of Martin Luther's Reformation. With Luther's call for reform echoing across Germany, Hutten saw an opportunity to carve a new path for the land, one cleansed of the church's grip. Sickingen, too, lent his sword to Luther's cause, drawn not only by the promise of religious reform, but also by the allure of church riches ripe for the taking. Together, they envisioned a Germany where the imperial knights reclaimed their former glory, standing tall against the encroaching shadows of feudal decline and technological advancement. Once a formidable force, the imperial knights had seen their power wane as wealth flowed into the coffers of the higher nobility. The feudal order crumbled beneath the weight of progress, leaving the armored knights teetering on the edge of obsolescence. Burdened by the church's tithe and drained by endless fees, their once proud stature dwindled, their coffers empty, their influence waning. In the heat of August 1522, Sickingen raised his banner, rallying fellow knights to his cause, but his zeal found little support among the peasants, who remained unmoved by his call to arms. As he marched towards the city of Trier, hoping to seize it in the name of reform, the peasants stood firm in their refusal to join his ranks. Meanwhile, Hutten ventured into Switzerland, seeking allies to bolster their cause. Yet even as he toiled to rally support, fate conspired against them. Sickingen's forces faltered, unable to breach Trier's walls, and were forced to retreat to the sanctuary of Nanstein Castle. But their sanctuary proved fleeting, for the armies of Philip I of Hesse, Elector Louis V, and the Archbishop of Trier descended upon them with relentless fury. The castle's defenses crumbled beneath their superior firepower, and Sickingen, wounded and defeated, surrendered to his fate on that fateful day of May 7, 1523. As Sickingen breathed his last, Hutten too met his end, far from the fray, succumbing to the ravages of syphilis in the quiet embrace of Switzerland. And in the heart of the Holy Roman Empire, the Germanic territory simmered with social hierarchy and divine decree. At the pinnacle stood the emperor, his authority radiating down through the tiers of nobility, clergy, merchants, and finally the peasants, each bound by their ordained place in the cosmic order. Nestled within this rigid structure were the imperial knights, a breed apart, beholden directly to the emperor himself. Though they wielded power akin to princes and dukes, their lack of imperial estates barred them from the hallowed halls of the imperial diet, where laws were forged and fortunes decided. Yet, despite their lofty status, their coffers ran dry as the nobility's wealth burgeoned, leaving them grasping for a foothold in a shifting landscape. The knights' wealth stemmed not from sprawling estates but from the spoils of war, garnered through daring raids and the capture of prized nobles, ransomed for princely sums. Yet, even as their fortunes flourished, the specter of obsolescence loomed large. The advent of the arquebus and the dreaded Wagenburg threatened to render their mounted prowess obsolete, leaving them vulnerable on the field of battle. In 1495, the knights made a desperate bid for inclusion in the imperial diet, presenting their grievances before the assembly at Worms. Yet, their pleas fell on deaf ears, save for a solitary concession, a decree outlawing private warfare. But this edict, crafted to curtail the knights' power, only served to strip them of their most lucrative trade, leaving them adrift in a sea of uncertainty. And Martin Luther's revolutionary 95 Theses, nailed to the doors of Wittenberg in 1517, ignited a spark that soon spread like wildfire across the Germanic lands. For the embattled knights, weary of their waning fortunes, Luther's call for reform heralded a tantalizing opportunity to reclaim their erstwhile glory. As Luther's teachings gained momentum, the entrenched hierarchy of the traditional social order trembled beneath the weight of change. For the lesser nobles, including the knights, Luther's cause promised not only spiritual liberation, but also the chance to seize Catholic lands and assets, bolstering their own coffers in the process. Yet, this alliance with the Reformation was a double-edged sword, fraught with perilous uncertainty. In the labyrinthine corridors of power, where church and state intertwined, the bishops and high-ranking clerics wielded secular authority alongside their spiritual duties. Many were born of noble stock, their ecclesiastical offices serving as lucrative sinecures for the privileged few. Here, within the opulent confines of cathedral chapters and monastic enclaves, the nobility found a refuge from the vicissitudes of fortune. Yet, Luther's audacious bid to dismantle the church posed a grave threat to their entrenched interests. While Luther's intentions remained shrouded in ambiguity, the prospect of upheaval loomed large. To support Luther was to gamble with fate, risking both power and prestige in the pursuit of uncertain gains. Among those who dared to champion Luther's cause were figures both illustrious and obscure. Philip I of Hesse, his support veiled in secrecy, clandestinely lent his aid to the burgeoning movement. Frederick III, the sagacious elector, likewise cast his lot with Luther, his allegiance a beacon of hope for the embattled knights. Foremost among Luther's champions stood Franz von Sickingen and Ulrich von Hutten, their fervent zeal driving them to defy the entrenched orthodoxy. For these stalwart knights, Luther's cause was a clarion call to arms, a chance to reshape the destiny of a nation teetering on the brink of revolution. And Franz von Sickingen, the formidable knight of Ebernburg Castle, loomed large over the Germanic lands, a towering figure whose deeds echoed through the annals of history. Inheriting his ancestral seat from his father, Sickingen emerged as a champion of the oppressed, a modern-day Robin Hood whose exploits captivated the hearts of the common folk. Famed for his valor on the battlefield, Sickingen had earned his spurs fighting under the banner of Emperor Maximilian I in the wars against Venice. Rewarded with fertile lands along the Rhine, he fortified the ancient stronghold of Nanstein at Landstuhl, fashioning it into an impregnable bastion that struck fear into the hearts of his foes. Yet, Sickingen's quest for justice knew no bounds. Defying the ban on private warfare, he waged a relentless campaign against the injustices of the age, liberating wealth in the name of the downtrodden masses. With each raid, he bolstered his own power, compelling nobles and potentates alike to yield to his iron will. It was in the crucible of conflict that Sickingen's path crossed with that of Ulrich von Hutten, the erudite poet knight whose fiery words ignited the flames of revolution. Hutten, a scion of learning and a staunch critic of the church, had long harbored a burning desire to see Germany free from papal tyranny. Their fateful encounter, forged in the fires of righteous indignation, marked the dawn of an alliance that would shake the very foundations of the established order. Hutten, with his incisive wit and unyielding spirit, found in Sickingen a kindred soul, a champion of the poor and downtrodden. Together, they embarked on a crusade against the entrenched powers of the church, rallying to the cause of Martin Luther and his nascent Reformation. As Luther's teachings spread like wildfire across the land, Hutten and Sickingen stood as beacons of hope, their voices raised in defiance of tyranny. When the Inquisition threatened the esteemed humanist scholar Johann Reuchlin, it was Hutten and Sickingen who rose to his defense, their swords poised to strike down the agents of oppression. And when Luther faced the wrath of the church at the Diet of Worms, it was Sickingen who offered him sanctuary within the walls of Ebernburg Castle, a bastion of freedom amidst a sea of persecution. And the bold aspirations of Franz von Sickingen and Ulrich von Hutten, once burning bright with the fervor of revolution, now lay shattered amidst the ruins of Nanstein Castle. Their vision of a reformed Germany, forged in the crucible of dissent, had ended in tragedy and ruin. As the Reformation swept across the Germanic lands, Sickingen's castle stood as bastions of defiance against the entrenched powers of the church. With Martin Butzer welcomed within their walls, they plotted a radical restructuring of society, fueled by the flames of Luther's teachings. Sickingen's call to arms echoed through the countryside, rallying the oppressed peasantry to his cause. But the peasants, wary of his reputation for plunder and exploitation, remained unmoved by his impassioned pleas. Meanwhile, Hutten ventured into the heart of Switzerland, seeking allies among the followers of Huldrych Zwingli. Yet, even there, his appeals fell on deaf ears, for the winds of change blew fickle and uncertain. Undeterred, Sickingen pressed on, his sights set on the city of Trier and its defiant archbishop, Richard von Greifenklau. But his holy crusade for liberation foundered in the face of overwhelming opposition, as the forces of nobility and church closed ranks against him. Besieged and outnumbered, Sickingen's fortresses crumbled beneath the relentless onslaught of cannon fire. Mortally wounded, he breathed his last, a martyr to a cause that had slipped through his fingers like sand. Hutten, too, met his end in a foreign land, his dreams of a united Germany shattered by the harsh realities of politics and power. In the aftermath of the failed revolt, The lesser nobles who had rallied to Sickingen's banner faced swift retribution, their lands confiscated and their castles razed to the ground. And in the wake of their demise, the seeds of discontent sown by their rebellion bore bitter fruit. The German Peasants' War erupted, a violent convulsion that tore through the fabric of society, claiming countless lives in its wake. Luther, once hailed as a champion of reform, now found himself compelled to condemn the rebels, turning his back on erstwhile allies in a bid to maintain order. Sickingen and Hutten, though their names may have faded into obscurity, stood as pioneers of a movement that forever altered the course of history. Their fervent belief in Luther's cause may have been misguided, their methods flawed, but their legacy endures as a testament to the enduring power of conviction and the relentless pursuit of change.